I guess just start with the big question for me that I've just, as you're watching and reading and everything for this sort of funky list season, off season, why are the Seahawks just getting killed in the national media? I'm not saying that they're Super Bowl champs, and I don't know that I'm sold, but like I saw somebody the other day who were like potentially winless Seahawks. I mean, like they're getting killed by the national press. What is going on? Why do they hate him so much right now?
So I think it's a variety of things. Like there's layers to this. Part of it is people outside this area don't understand what happened here. Mm-hmm. They don't understand why the Seahawks, quote, chose to go from Geno Smith to Sam Darnold and why they, quote, chose to go from DK Metcalf to Cooper Kupp. And that's how they see it. Even though you and I and others know that it wasn't just that. There's other nuances to how that all happened. So just as a straight player-to-player change, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. But then beyond that, I don't think that a lot of national folks or football folks in general prioritize defense. And so if you look at the Seahawks, they had the 5th best defense in the NFL last year in points per drive. That's a better metric than just points per game, right? Points per drive. Every other defense in the NFC West was 21st or worse. 49ers were 30th in that, right? But no one talks about the defense. They talk about the offense. And the Seahawks have made so many changes on offense, and so many of them need to be seen to be believed. I think that's a big part. And then the offensive line, man. Yeah. It's until that proves differently, that's going to be a story.
So I love that comment on the defense. I think you're right. I think when people are looking at teams and ranking teams, it's a lot easier to look at the quarterback and the weaponry and hear what the offensive line is and make a call than it is to really delve into what their defense is going to do. You're right. I think that's probably the primary reason they're getting as pasted as they are right now. The quote unquote, decisions to move on from Geno and DK are interesting to me because while I agree with them, my reasoning behind it has a lot to do with reallocation of resources. And I'm not sure we saw some of that reallocation yet. So I guess maybe the question is, do you think this offseason was about 2025 or was this about 2026 and beyond and kind of starting that process?
It depends on which person in that building in the VMAC you ask, because the GM's job, John Schneider's job, is always to be looking at least 3 years ahead. And his job is to always be trying to replace every single player on that roster with someone better. That's just his job. It makes him unpopular at times probably in that building, but that's his job. For the coaching staff, it is now. They don't necessarily have the benefit of looking ahead 3 years. They've got to win now. And here's the thing, Mike. I disagree with the impression that other people have that this was what the Seahawks wanted to do. And I think they would, if given the choice, they would have rather had Geno Smith sign. They would have rather kept DK Metcalf. That was plan A. And John Schneider's admitted as much, which is not something GMs always do. But they couldn't do that for various reasons. They've moved on. And I think to your point, there's some real potential benefits.
Yeah, if I'm John Schneider, I would never admit that because I think it was a mistake to have kept those guys. Like, I think the worst thing they could have done would have been to sign Geno and DK. That would have been a disaster.
I think that the DK move for sure, 27 years old, incredibly talented, but has never been the guy that makes the contested catch, never plays as big as he was athletically. That would have been really tough to give him, $35 million, $33 million, whatever it was.
It would have been a terrible idea.
That was one that I think if you just made that move, I think there would have been a much different attitude outside of Seattle about this.
I'll tell you what, I would have been just as upset if they had given Geno Smith the contract that the Raiders did. You're talking about a guy who doesn't make the top 18 quarterbacks in the game. And they go out and sign him with more guarantee money for a longer period of time, and he's a few years older as well than Sam Darnold. Like, I'm not sold that Sam Darnold is the quarterback of the future for the Seahawks. We'll see. He's got an opportunity to earn it, and if he does, great, I'll be happy. And if not, there's a really good quarterback class next year, and I think they're in position to be in it and be in the hunt for somebody who could be the next guy. But the idea of re-signing Geno Smith to that money and getting a bottom half of the league quarterback at actual money, why? What would possibly be the point of doing that?
I think that you got to be a little careful, even with Jeremy Fowler's list there. That's coaches or scouts and front office guys. there's blind spots in the NFL front offices. There always have been, and quarterbacks might be one of the places where there's the biggest blind spot. Baker Mayfield's a great example. Has been kicked all around the league. Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, like a lot of these guys have made it through. A lot of them would still say Trevor Lawrence is much better. Trevor Lawrence, every measure of a quarterback has him worse than Geno Smith. And so I guess I would be a little cautious there. I think Geno Smith has proven over the last few years behind what honestly has been one of the worst offensive lines in the game with one of the worst running games in the game to be a pretty darn good quarterback. Yes, he's made a lot of mistakes, and a lot of fans in Seattle, I was surprised. The amount of fans I sit next to during home games that wanted him gone was more than wanted him here. But Sam Darnold's got bigger shoes to fill than I think you're implying.
There was one little piece of information that came out after Geno was traded that to me, I think maybe speaks louder than any of those stats, any of those numbers, any of these rankings, any of it. And that is that Geno was communicating as often as he was with Pete Carroll last year. And no blame to Pete. Not saying Pete did anything wrong. That's not tampering. There's nothing wrong with it at all. And I don't even really have a problem with Geno having conversations with Pete. But I think it's a window in to these guys weren't Mike Macdonald guys. At their core, at the crux, Geno Smith wasn't a Mike Macdonald guy. And whenever things weren't going the way he wanted them to, who would he call? Not Mike Macdonald, Pete Carroll. There was not a fit there. And I'm sure, it gets kind of spun or reported as Geno wanted to leave, but it wouldn't surprise me if Mike Macdonald didn't really want Geno back either. Like, yeah, he wants to leave because I was never into him that much because he wasn't my guy. And I want people, unlike Geno, unlike DK, who are going to buy in 100%.
That is the storyline that makes the most sense to me. If you want to look optimistically at these changes, I think for the first time, Mike Macdonald's been here for a year, but for the first time this year, he's going to have his team. This is a group of guys that are bought in, that understand that what he's expecting. Even if you look at this draft class, one of my big impressions, interviewing each one of those guys, hearing them talk, they all love ball. They all are charismatic. They are all solid guys, like in how they show up. And what has Mike Macdonald said over and over and over again about what he wants people that love ball because he's obsessed with it. Yep. And so now you feel the identity, which you and Brock talk about a bunch, and I believe in is a massive part of just you cannot win in the NFL without knowing who you even want to be. And I think Mike Macdonald has a pretty clear idea, maybe importantly, now has a clear idea of what he wants offensively.
Yeah.
I don't think he had that as much coming in.
Well, and you've worked in the corporate world as well, had a successful career before turning it into the Hawk Blogger deal, which, by the way, I've mentioned a few times. I just think is awesome, turning it from a blog and then doing it full time and covering the team in person. I'm so impressed with the whole deal of what you've done. You can't do anything in life if you don't know what you want to be.
Yes.
I mean, like, you can eventually fall into it every once in a while in a lucky fashion. But it's just so much better in any business, in any job, in any part of life to have a goal and then go try to achieve it. And I don't think that Geno or DK really fit that goal particularly well. And so do I think Cooper Kupp is the replacement for DK Metcalf? No. What I was hoping would be the replacement for DK Metcalf would be a big mauling right guard. And that's the thing that I don't understand. For all of the work they did, why are we still sitting here with major question marks on the offensive line?
I don't know if they have major question marks. They
got two major question marks, and one of them, the third, is going to be filled by a rookie.
Define who's a major question mark for.
Anybody playing right guard is a major question mark for me right now.
I will
and anybody
agree with that.
playing center is if it's not a major question mark, it's a definite question mark.
It's a question mark. Major, we've seen enough of Oluwatimi to say he's at least going to be a league average center if you play him there. I don't think you're talking about a major question mark. And I think there's potential upside if Jalen Sundell, by the way, was athletic enough last year that they had him as a backup tackle. Yeah. And putting him at center, I think there's a lot of interesting players there, not to mention Christian Haynes has been getting snaps at center. So I think center's in good shape. Right guard is really the spot where there's competition, and I think there's a good news there because Christian Haynes came out of UConn as the best zone blocking guard in the draft and one of the best zone blocking guards in years. And then they went last year, and Ryan Grubb just didn't run outside zone almost at all. And so I think there's a chance he'll take a big step. And this is going to be something that a lot of people are excited about. Anthony Bradford, a guy that has not been good. He's been bad. Came into mini camp in the best shape I've seen him in, and was absolutely annihilating people in the drills. Now we'll see when pads get on. We'll see when he goes against other opponents. But I think there's some promise there. I just want to offer that Gray Zabel, I think he's going to be the best Seahawks drafted lineman in decades.
I think he might be as well. I'm not disagreeing on that, but history has taught me not to count on a rookie being, starting caliber quality right away. I love Abe Lucas when he's out there. I will admit to still having some concern, and maybe it's because Pete once used the word chronic, and I know that Abe has discounted that and everyone else has said that's not really true, but that word still lingers in the back of my mind that Pete said it, which is not a word he would use very often. So yeah, I have some, and I like Charles Cross. I'm curious where he'll end up on the top 10 tackles list. I don't think he'll be on there. He's a good player.
He was not on there.
Did they already do it?
They did it, and
I missed it.
Yes, so he was not in the top 10. He was not in honorable mention, but he did receive votes.
Okay, so I want to be excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just surprised you don't go out and make one more move at that position, which really I think would have given everyone just a totally different view of that group heading into the season.
Well, 100% agree. I came on and talked to you about, you cannot just go into this with only a rookie added and hope that it's going to be a lot better. That is a much more risky path.
Mm-hmm.
I think they had two options to potentially upgrade at right guard, and one of them was Joe Thuney, and I don't think that was really an option. I think that, Ryan Poles is buddies with the guys in Kansas City. I don't think the Seahawks ever got a chance to be in on him. That would have been a huge addition for not much in return. And then, Will Fries, who, by the way, they were in on and were going to go. He refused a physical. There are some rumors that he might not still be at full health. So I don't know that there were if they just went and spent this money on a guy that didn't make sense, then you're back at the Jamarcus Webb and the Bradley Sowell situation. You don't need that.
Well, yes and no. I don't need that. You're right. The problem with those guys is that they were, hey, let's spend 5 nickels instead of a quarter.
Yes.
And I wanted them to go spend a quarter or $1 or whatever. And I don't know exactly what they should have done on the offensive line. I'm not a GM and I don't have an answer. I don't scout offensive line talent. I don't know the difference between some of these guys. I just know that you can't say every year, well, we couldn't do this. We just couldn't do that. Eventually you got to figure it out. You got to have an offensive line if you want to be a running football team, which they say they do. Coming back to that identity idea, you got to figure it out. So, all right. What this season goes well if